So with only 13 games left of this championship season, what I thought we'd do for a video today is go through the league and discuss who has been each club's best player so far this season. And what I've also done is compile two separate team of the seasons, one for the top 6 and one for the sides who currently sit outside the top 6. I'd be interested to know from you guys who would make it into your team of this season. We could get some interesting debates going there. And just before we do hop into anything, of course, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors over at OneFootball. As always, you'll find their link in the top line of the description down below. Like I said, we've only got 13 games left of this championship season now. It is absolutely flown by, but if you want to keep up with all the latest ongoings, then OneFootball is the best place to go ahead and do that. Keep up to date with all the latest news going on around your club. You can get live updates to your phone with all the matches that are going on towards the tail end of the season, and just a really handy app to have in the footballing world, so link down below. So we'll first of all go through the top 6 and then we'll work our way down the championship. So without any further ado, let's hop into this one. Starting out with West Brom, I think this one probably picks itself. Matheus Pereira with 6 goals and 12 assists so far this season, for me at least, has definitely been their standout player so far. But a lot of players at West Brom have been very consistent throughout the year and definitely deserve a mention. People like Kyle Bartley, who last season a lot of people have wrote off, myself included, didn't really seem to fit into the system there. Towards the end of last season started to come into his own, but this season under Bilic has really taken his game to another level. Jake Livermore as well, also been really crucial in the system they play. But I think that in terms of game defining moments and those times of quality and how often he's produced it so far this season, you can't look any further than Pereira for West Brom. The same goes for Leeds United. I'm going to have to sway towards Calvin Phillips, especially the impact that Phillips has when he's not in the side. Leeds without Phillips and Leeds with Phillips are two completely different sides. We saw that with his suspension that he picked up after the QPR game, and in the last 2 games that he's been involved in, he's been absolutely massive for them. And it's not just his impact on them defensively, but going forward as well, leading the pressure, his quality on the ball, composure in the midfield is absolutely vital to their system. But a few of the players who deserve an honourable mention, Luke Ayling seems to have been a really consistent performer for them so far this season whenever he has featured. Ben White in filling the boots of Pontus Jansson being the ball-playing centre-back, and Stuart Dallas just for the sheer number of different roles that he's played for Leeds so far this season. Fulham's player picks itself really. Mitrovic with 21 goals in 30 appearances for Fulham so far this season. Last time Mitrovic was at Fulham on loan in the Championship, I thought that would be the last time we ever see him in the Championship because he's just way too good for this level. Fulham managed to keep hold of him over the summer, and I mean, what an unbelievable striker. He's good enough to play in the Premier League for quite a number of those clubs actually. I think he could get into maybe even the top 6 sides as a backup striker because he is absolutely phenomenal. His physicality on the ball, his movement inside the box. I think that Brentford's a bit of a tough one really because they do have they've had a lot of outstanding players so far this season. The front 3 have all been excellent, but apart from that as well, Pontus Jansson at the back's been brilliant. David Raya conceded the fewest amount of goals so far this season in the Championship. Josh Da Silva in midfield, Norgard as well. They've had so many good performers, but for me it probably does have to go to one of the forward 3. Ben Rama has been absolutely unbelievable this season. The same from Mbeumo as well. I don't think many people expected him to be as good as he has been, but I'd probably edge towards Ollie Watkins with the 20 goals that he scored for Brentford so far this season. If you cast your mind back to the start of the season when Brentford weren't really picking up all too many results, it was Ollie Watkins who back then was certainly their most consistent performer, and to be hitting 20 goals this season, to have filled the boots of Neil Maupay, where I don't think anyone expected him to do that. Nottingham Forest was another tough one to pick for me, and a lot of honourable mentions for this one. I think the 2 outstanding performers for me at Forest this season have probably been Bryce Samba and Matty Cash. It's between those 2 for me, but even then there's still quite a few other honourable mentions. The likes of Ben Watson, who's really stepped up his game this season. Lewis Grabban, who's on 16 goals for the season. Joe Lolly, even though he was quite quiet at the start of the season, seems to have picked back up now. But it's between those 2. I think because of recent performances, I'm just edging towards Matty Cash. I've got that goal against West Brom in the back of my mind from the weekend, but the way he's been able to transition his game from going from a winger to being probably the best fullback in the Championship this season, I think that deserves a lot of praise. So for me, Matty Cash probably just edges it, but Samba comes close because he has been excellent. Preston's another tough one to pick, and to be honest, from now until the end of the season, I think it's still fairly open because a lot of people are on similar playing fields. I'd say that at this point in time, I'd probably just about give it to Daniel Johnson. I think that because Preston, we don't really have a striker who scores too many goals, we are very reliant on goals from midfield, and the way that DJ's been able to step up his game this season compared to last season has been absolutely fantastic to see. Playing in that number 10 position, he's been a completely new player with 10 goals and 5 assists so far this season, that being as well that he has been injured for quite a chunk of the season so far. But those are the sides who are currently sitting in the playoffs. So as you can see now, this is my top 6 team of the season so far. So we'll go through the side. I've gone for a back 5 of Bryce Samba in goal, then we got Matty Cash, Pontus Jansson, Ben White and Joe Bryan. Left back was a bit of a tricky one, and Joe Bryan has been cut out quite a few times defensively so far this season, but I put him in there because for me he's probably been the best attacking left back in the league so far this season with 8 assists. The midfield two I've gone for, Calvin Phillips I think has to be in there, and Daniel Johnson as well, been Preston's outstanding player so far this season. And then the forward four, oh my god, Benrahma, Pereira, Watkins and Mitrovic. Could you imagine how many goals that side would score in the Championship? It would be absolutely unbelievable. But that for me right now have been the standout players from the top 6 sides. Let me know down below if anyone else would get into that side. And now let's get on with the rest of the Championship. Bristol City, who just currently sit outside of the top 6 on goal difference, their player of the season for me, it's a toss-up between Daniel Bentley and Eliasson. I think I'm just going to give it to Daniel Bentley. At the start of the season, he was absolutely on fire, and he still is. That game at the weekend against Leeds pulled off some remarkable saves, and he has done throughout the season. Eliasson's also up there for me with 3 goals and 12 assists so far this season. Blackburn have got quite a few contenders for this one, and I think that with the likes of Bradley Dack and Lewis Holtby getting injured, it's actually put a spotlight on some of the other players that Blackburn have got. For me personally, I'm probably edging towards Adam Armstrong with the amount of match wins that he scored so far this season, 9 goals and 6 assists. But honourable mentions have to go to the likes of Stuart Downing, it's been the second coming of Stuart Downing lately for Blackburn. Absolutely fantastic as a creative midfielder with 2 goals and 7 assists so far this season for Rovers. He's definitely up there. Adebayo and Lenny have been so tight at the back together. Cardiff City were looking no further than Lee Tomlin. He didn't really get much of a look in under Neil Warnock, but since Neil Harris has been there, Lee Tomlin's absolutely transformed his game, and he has had some outrageous moments so far this season. Thinking back to that Leeds game, the assist for the 3rd goal in that game was absolutely outrageous. He's also scored some absolute belting goals, 7 goals, 7 assists so far this season. Their creative hub going forward, it's got to be Lee Tomlin for me. What a player. With Millwall, I think you have to give it to Jed Wallace with 10 goals and 9 assists so far this season. Obviously, Millwall do still hold out for a chance of making it into the top 6 come the end of the season. Now, I watched them at Deepdale and they were absolutely fantastic at the weekend. Other honourable mentions, Sean Hutchinson, who's got 5 goals as a centre-back so far this season. That centre-back pairing or trio that they play with at the moment all have been absolutely excellent. Bartosz Spilkowski, another player who's up there for me, been one of the most consistent goalkeepers outside of the top 6 so far this season. But just for the amount of magic moments that he's produced so far this season, Jed Wallace has to get it. What an unbelievable season. Swansea's going to go to Andre Ayew. It's a shame if someone like maybe Joe Roden didn't get injured. He could have challenged Ayew for it, but I think that with 10 goals and 5 assists so far this season, Ayew has been their real spark throughout the season so far, and probably has been one of their most consistent performers actually. Really good poacher inside the box, seems to get himself into those good positions. Now Sheffield Wednesday is a bit of a tricky one. They're on an awful run of form at the moment. Before Stephen Fletcher got injured, I think that he was cruising to their Player of the Season award. He was absolutely brilliant, scored 12 goals in 21 starts for them. But with him getting injured, who do you then go ahead and give it to? I think I'm probably looking at one of their defenders as one of their more consistent performers so far this season. So one of, either Julian Bourne or Morgan Fox maybe. I'm probably going to give it to Dominic Iorfa. I have been quite impressed with him, although he did have a bit of a disaster class at the weekend. Derby County, I think if Wayne Rooney continues in his current run of form, then he could be in with a shout of it come the end of the season. But realistically, I think Dwayne Holmes has probably been their most consistent performer for me throughout the season so far. Really has been a breakthrough year for him when he's really stepped up to the plate. He's pretty much played all throughout midfield so far this season, but I would say in what has been a very inconsistent season for Derby, Holmes has probably been one, if not their most consistent performer. 2 goals, 3 assists for the midfielder so far this season, but that doesn't really paint the picture of how good he's actually been for Derby. Birmingham, I'm going to Christian Pedersen, one of, if not the best left back in the league at the moment really. 4 goals, 2 assists. He's got brilliant qualities going forward and defensively as well. He's probably good enough to play in the Premier League. I really do think he has that quality about him. Birmingham have got a great set of fullbacks there at the moment in Maxime Colin and Pedersen, but Pedersen especially has been outstanding so far this season. A couple of other honourable mentions. Lucas Djukovic has been a really consistent performer for them lately with 12 goals. Jude Bellingham, of course. For Reading, I'm going to have to go for John Swift. Ajaria runs him really close, but John Swift this season, this has been the season for John Swift that we all originally thought he was capable of, but wasn't really shown in previous years. In previous times for Reading, he's always had quite inconsistent seasons. He'd be very hot and cold. This season, he's taken his game to another level, and I would say has probably been one, if not the best playmakers from central midfield so far this season, with 5 goals and 9 assists to his name this year. And if Reading had another striker who had been a bit more consistent throughout the year, he'd probably have more assists to his name. QPR is not really up for debate, is it? Ebery Eze, unbelievable season, 11 goals, 6 assists so far this season. There are some of the players been decent for them. Ryan Manning have enjoyed this season. Brightside Samuel has provided us with a lot of joy lately especially, but Eze so far this season, he's way out in front in terms of successful dribbles completed in the Championship this time round. I think that Ajaria is second and Benrahma third, Brightside Samuel fourth on that list, but Eze is like way off in the distance. Hull City is a bit of an awkward one. I think that Jerry Byrne was probably on course to go ahead and collect that award with 16 goals and 7 assists. He then went on to leave in January. Kevin Stewart, before he got injured, I thought he would have been in with a real shout at their Player of the Season award. I thought he was doing brilliantly well, but considering the people that have left and the injuries, I'd probably say Hull's Player of the Season is between two for me. Either Da Silva Lopez, who's been absolutely unbelievable so far this season for them, played in a number of roles throughout midfield, or George Long in net. And I probably would edge towards George Long throughout the whole season. Obviously has had a couple of dodgy games here and there lately, but judging it over the full season, I'd probably just edge it to George Long, but there's a couple of others you could go for there at Hull. Middlesbrough was a bit of a tough one to pick as well. A couple of contenders for this one. I think that Ainsley Pearce has done well filling the boots of Randolph so far this season. Ayala has been a really consistent centre-back for them, but I'd probably edge towards Johnny Housen and the consistency that he's shown throughout the season, especially given the position change that he's had to do so far this season. You know, whenever Borough played with that three at the back system, Housen playing on the right-hand side of that, I think has done fantastically well. Stepping into midfield when required, but I'd say that the majority of their attacking players have been fairly up and down so far this season. Housen has been one of the more constant, and with 5 assists for him so far this season in that relatively defensive role, I think that he just gets the nod for me. Charlton's another tough one. It's a bit of a 50-50. Darren Pratley comes so close to getting it because I think he's been absolutely brilliant, breaking things up for them in central midfield, but Dylan Phillips has produced some of the most outrageous saves so far this season, and that's been happening throughout the season as well. It's not just as if his form's picked up recently, you know. I mean, thinking about that game that was recent against Barnsley, I think it was a save where he sort of went back on himself to tip it around the post. He has done and produced so many outrageous moments for Charlton so far this season. I'd love to see a compilation of some of his best saves from the season at the end of the year, because he's been absolutely magnificent for them. Huddersfield for me is going to be Lewis O'Brien. With the number of roles that he's played so far this season, it really has been a breakthrough year for him. The guy's got an absolutely unbelievable engine on him. I think that with 2 goals and 3 assists so far this season, the amount that he adds both to Huddersfield's attacking and defensive options, he's a brilliant player to have around. You know, someone like Colin Grant probably runs him close. He scored a lot of goals at the start of the season with 13 at the moment, but overall, I say that O'Brien just edges it. With Stoke, we are scratching the barrel a little bit, but I would say that Sam Clucas is deserving of it for me. Whenever I do watch Stoke, he's their player in midfield who offers the most, has the most quality on the ball, and has probably come up with the most game-defining moments for them so far this season, with 8 goals from midfield and an assist to add to that as well. They've obviously picked their form up a little bit recently, but thinking right back to the start of the season, I think that Clucas was one of very few players who could hold his head up high and say, alright, I've actually performed fairly well in the opening months of the season, where I don't feel as if a lot of the other Stoke players could say the same. For Wigan, I'm going to go for Anthony Robinson. Obviously nearly got his move to Milan in January. That didn't materialise in the end, but I think, I mean, not just because of that obviously, but has been their most consistent performer throughout the season so far. I mean, you'll look at someone like Che Dunkley, who's got like 6 goals from centre-back so far this season. Obviously that's brilliant, and for him to be their top scorer is a little bit mad at this point of the season, but in terms of actually defending, I don't think that Che Dunkley's all too great. With Luton, I think I'm edging towards James Collins, their top scorer so far this season, with 10 goals and 3 assists. You know, a lot of people question if he would be able to make the step up. Whether he would score goals in the Championship would be a big factor deciding on if Luton managed to stay up this season. So far this season, he has been able to do that, and should they survive, his goals are going to be crucial to that. And then finishing it off with Barnsley. Barnsley actually have quite a few contenders for this one, I think. You know, Alex Moat's been a really consistent performer for them. Jacob Brown, I think, has been excellent in spells with 8 assists and 2 goals so far this season, but it probably was the performance at the weekend that swayed it for me. Cauley Woodrow with 13 goals and 2 assists for Barnsley this season. He's recently been playing as a number 10 for them, started the season out as a striker, but absolutely fantastic for Barnsley. I think there will be a whole lot of interest in Woodrow throughout next summer. But guys, as you can see on screen now, that is my Championship team of this season for sides who are currently sat outside of the top 6. So let me know in the comments down below if you would make any changes to that team. Obviously, I've had to play around with the formation a little bit to try and fit everyone that I wanted to into that side. I was sort of 50-50 between Lee Tomlin and Andre Ayew, so let me know down below who do you guys think has had the better season. But overall, guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. So if you did go on to enjoy, make sure you do leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. Make sure you subscribe for a bit of regular Championship content. But other than that, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.